What's up guys, welcome to another episode. If you saw the last one, I had the car down at a show, so I did put it back together, but now it's time to get it back in the workshop, put it up on the hoist and have a go at a bit more of this exhaust. Alright, I'll just remove the fender. That's going to be the first thing, the main thing. I will have to have a look at fitment, make sure it's all going to work all right, see how we go from there. As I said before, this infill panel, I'm going to have to think of something that I can make out of to be a bit more heat resistant. The exhaust pipe will go right behind it and most probably touch it as well. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue though. Let's get stuck into it. Alright, fender's off, as you can see. Nice and easy to get that bad boy off. Now is probably not a bad time to have a bit of a look down here to see, oh, it's nice and flashy for you. Down here to see where the exhaust is going to go, so it's time to mark out to do a bit of trimming. And then that way I'll be planning for when it's time to run it down there and put it all back together. Toolbox, there we are, grab that bad boy. Alright, let's have a bit of a look. Let's see. Infill panel out of the way now to mark out on my side skirt or sides. Well, it's not really a splitter because it's more just for convenience. It's not a bad idea to mark it out now where I can trim along here so the exhaust can come down. So while I've got some space there, I'll get the paint pen marker, which doesn't really work in the dust, but it'll do the job. At least I know where I've got to cut and trim, because all this is hidden anyway. Alright, I'm going to take this bonnet exhaust tip section off, which I'm thinking I might change these bolts to Allen bolts, because I can't get the ring on there, and it's a bit of a nightmare every time I want to take it on and off. Exhaust off. Guys, as you can see, pretty much all pulled apart. I've always tried to keep in the back of my mind as I've been building this car that some of these bits and pieces are definitely going to have to come off later down the track. So I've always tried to keep it simple, keep it straightforward. There's no need to have 6 or 7 bolts if 3 are just going to do the job to hold it on. It keeps it easier later down the track when you crash or have to break something, or not have to break something, it's just stuff breaks. It's just part of cars and race cars. So if I can make it easier to pull apart later down the track and save myself a bit of heartache, then I'll do it for sure. I've got my section here. I'm going to be able to bolt back into place and then see if I can work on the turbo back to the flange. I've got the 90 here, which was a little bit too sharp of an angle. I needed to open up it a little bit. I didn't need a 45 though, so I've sliced it across the back there and then opened up the angle a little bit. Not perfect, not a great weld, but it'll do the job. It's going to be airtight. Like I said, it's just an exhaust, it's not structural. If this was something important to the car as far as handling or safety, I'd definitely be getting someone like Lawrence Metal Fab to knock it up for me. Back into place. Got a section mocked up here. It falls a bit short, so I'll extend it. Unfortunately, the 90s don't come with enough of the tail, but if I can get that tacked into the flange and then position it in the right spot, tack it all up, it should do the job and flow through to this flex joiner and then go down there, and that should be happy days. A few more bits and pieces marked up on where I need to maybe tack them in here. Line them up, tack them in, see how they fit. Looks like it's going to do the trick. The flex joiner in there, which is going to allow for the movement of the engine back and forth, as the rest of the exhaust will most probably be solid mounted. All welded up, pretty average looking welds, but nothing a bit of exhaust wrap won't fix. That'll about do me for the night. I'll pop the cover on and we'll see what we can get done tomorrow. Got it all bolted together. I will run it up now, run it for a little bit, see how the joins look where I've welded up. If there's any exhaust leaks, I should see it's a little black spots or a little puff of the exhaust coming out. and that'll be a bit of a telltale sign if I need to grind and re-weld or fix up any holes that I might have missed. Fire it up and then we'll see if there's any leaks. Nice and dark in here with the cover on. Felt one around here which I'll mark up, and now that I can see it, it's obvious to me that I did miss that spot. No other spots that I could see or feel. It definitely sounds a fair bit different coming out underneath the carb than it does out the bonnet, but I will pull it off, weld it up, and then I reckon good to heat wrap. Well, pretty happy with it. Tacked up that little spot, that little leak that was there. Looking pretty good. I'll get ready to wrap it up with some of this exhaust wrap, not only to cover up some of my hideous looking welds, but also to help keep some of the engine bay temps down. Not that I really would have much of a problem with these massive holes in the bonnet, but anything helps, you know. Knocked up a bit of a quick how-to video on exhaust wrapping. Not saying that the way I do it is 100% the right way or the only way. It's just the way that I've been taught, the way I think works well for me. Might be helpful for others. I'll put a link in the description or up here somewhere, and once this is dried up, I will work on getting it back on the car. So the exhaust wrap is all dried up, ready to go on the car. I will grab the gasket, bolt it into place. Once I have got that all sorted, I'll probably start on the other side. That way I can work on all the underbody stuff all at the same time. Might make it a bit easier once the car's up in the air, and I can lay it out a bit better that way. Okay, all bolted up in place. The lower section will most probably have to come off again at some stage, but at least it's all lined up and it should be a bit easier next time. It's got to go back off and then back on again. I will lift this panel off, find a spot for the battery ISO to go, which is this bad boy here. It's just a cable, but it was in the way of the exhaust. Gonna get hot there, don't want to melt it, especially being a safety item. What I'm going to work on now though is getting rid of the windscreen wiper motor and windscreen wiper. Windscreen wiper, don't need that anymore. Next will be jump in here, get rid of that wiper motor. Taking the wiper blade off, I'll get rid of the whole arms and whole thing that goes on in there. Bit of weight reduction, but as well as, well, I'm not going to save that much weight, but it's right where the exhaust is going to go on this side, as I've done on the other side, so it's got to go. Wiper motor out of the way. I will probably have to get rid of, well, not get rid of, relocate the fuel pressure reg, which is just there. Probably a little bit too close for comfort when I run that exhaust past it. I'll take this off now, make space and be able to get into where the wiper rod is. I've got to get that out there and that one on there. I don't want them just floating around. So I'll work on that next. Can probably do away with the mounting points as well. Now that I've got the panel out of the way, I can get in and get rid of the wiper arms. The nuts there though are a little bit rusted, as you'd expect on an old car. These sockets from King Chrome, which I don't know if you can see, but they've got little teeth in them, always work a treat for me. Rounded nuts, rounded bolts, rusted ones, it gets that grip on there, and 9 times out of 10 will get them straight off. If they don't, you're probably having bigger problems than a rusted or rounded off bolt anyway, so you might have to whip the drill out and get crazy. Got one that's being especially tricky. I'll try to get a bit of a close up there, see if we can't crack it, and give you a bit of a demo of how well it works. So this one here, away I go, was a bit firm getting on in the first place, but I'll show you the next one that is going to be a bit trickier as well. It has a bit of rust around there, it's going to be a bit tricky to get a bite on, but usually I can wiggle that bad boy onto there, and there we go, straight away. Not going to be as easy as I thought. They are spinning on the back, which the lock-on sockets can't do anything about. Got the bolts spinning on the back. I will have a crack at that. Might need to soak it overnight and have another go at it tomorrow. That about wraps it up for this episode, guys. Next one, I'll probably work on moving the fuel pressure reg, get a few other bits and pieces out of the way so I can make space for the exhaust on the passenger side. Got a couple of words of wisdom for you at the end of this video. Don't take it too seriously. It's just my views on things. Everyone has different opinions. It is the internet after all. But if you like what I'm doing, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you next time. Another thing I've been a pretty firm believer in is having a go yourself. You've got to start somewhere, and whether it be your project car, your race car, or your street car, if you're into building them and you want to learn, just get stuck into it and have a go. There's certain things that obviously you shouldn't just have a go at, like welding a cage together or slapping some brakes on if you've never done that before. Then maybe jump on the internet or ask a mate or get some advice from someone. But for most things, unbolting a turbo, undoing an intercooler, have a crack at it yourself. As long as you're not cutting things that can't be fixed easily, then what's the worst that can happen? There's plenty of people on the internet that are going to flame you and say, if you don't know, you shouldn't be touching it. But the reality is, everyone started somewhere, everyone had to get advice from someone or learn by doing it themselves. There's always going to be people that you get advice from. Not everyone's advice is always going to be right or wrong, it's just going to be different. Everyone has a different way of doing things. Like the saying goes, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So it doesn't hurt to get advice from a few different people, get a few different people's take on things, and then see what works best for you. The fuel pressure reg off the bracket there, I reckon. Background and insight on what I do for a day job. This sheet of alley, which hopefully I can shape.